Hey everyone, it's Daniel with VintageMagic.com, and thanks again for watching one of my YouTube videos. So today is all about old school Magic the Gathering. This is going to be like an introduction video for those of you who really are not familiar with old school Magic. It's a video I've been wanting to do for a very long time, but I think the timing is perfect for it. One of the reasons why I think old school Magic is something that is very important for the game is it really brings back the history of what Magic the Gathering was. For those of you who don't know what old school Magic is, it primarily is the 1993 and 1994 cards. Now, there is some debate about should we include Fallen Empires or not in the block of the old school Magic cards. So there's actually two types of kind of groups that accept it. There's an old school Magic blog started in Sweden by a gentleman named Marcus. I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I'll actually put the link on the bottom of the video where it has literally like monthly blogs about various old school tournaments, decks, whatever. And it's kind of like the, I would say the site that kind of started the whole trend going on for old school. And then in link below we'll also have Eternal Central, which is another website called eternalcentral.com, which has old school Magic articles and information and tournaments and coverage. And this they have their own rules too, and I don't believe they have they include the Fallen Empires block, but the Swedish rules in Sweden they don't include Fallen Empires. So there's also this thing about, well, should you have 4 strip mines or 1 strip mine or 4 workshops or no, or not. Both of them have different own rules. So make sure you go and read the banned restricted lists that they have. So depending on what format you're, which rule set you're playing with, you have that. So one of the things that I'll share with you in the beginning was I started with old school Magic back in like 1994 in high school. And I remember some of my friends playing this card game while I was walking by lunch in like kind of like the tech drafting room. And I went over there and they were playing these cards with some artwork, and I was watching them, and I looked at these cards. I was like, man, these are really pretty, really beautiful artwork. Cards like Wrath of God, Vesuvian Doppelganger, Sarah Angel, they're all just iconic images that I was like, man, why are you guys playing this game with no sleeves? There's no like protection for these cards. And they said, hey, just pick up a chair, let's play let's just play this game. It's a game, So I was like, okay, that's cool. So I played the game. I was interested in learning more about the game. I played a little bit with my cousins. I drafted different sets, such as Ice Age was a primary set where I really had the money to really put more money into it. I did start with Revised, but Ice Age was probably one of the more predominant sets I put money into because I actually had some money to spend at the time. So with all that said, I mean, I was not a person that had the opportunity to play Alpha and Beta in the very, very beginning. So I think there's a lot of rumors. People think that I just have loads of Alpha and Beta boxes and cases and pallets full. I was not one of those guys. I was in high school at the time, guys. The most I could afford was probably like money to go roller skating and buy some of those cheap Marvel comic cards. I think they were like those Marvel comic cards, Spider-Man, whatnot. I think we all grew up with those cards. Back in the 90s, you would know exactly what I'm talking about, which actually are not worth very much today, except the 1996 Marvel Masterpiece set. So that's kind of how I start with Magic. I played, casually, never was a tournament player, didn't follow it from a competitive standpoint. Internet was not really predominant back in the day, so you couldn't just search for a bunch of cards. So it really just became something I grew up with, somewhat of just knowing the game of playing the older cards, but never really had a lot of time to play it. I ended up going to more sports cards and collectibles. So old school Magic though hits home to me because the artwork means a lot to me. As some of you may know, I collect a lot of artwork. I also invest in the artwork, but I think it's one of those things where Magic has a multifaceted love. It's not just about just the game, but people also collect it, invest in it, and they, you know, appreciate the art. So what's nice about old school Magic is all these cool little quirky cards that you haven't seen for a while. They just bring back amazing memories of the artwork, and also as a game, a functionality of the cards. And I really suggest you guys, a couple roadmap things to do is, if you want to play old school Magic, it's very simple. All you need to do is, below, you'll go to our old school Magic articles and announcements and news. There's different videos and obviously articles written by the 2007 vintage champion Steve Menendian. He's a friend of mine and a really big avid old school Magic player and vintage player. And he's written so far about 9 articles as of today. And he'll be writing, you know, I think over 10 articles or plus of just different decks, different strategies over the course of old school. And what's cool about what Steve does is he doesn't just do the typical, hey, this is what this card does, this is what, you know, it's not like that. He does a little bit of that, but he also tells stories, he talks about history. He's what I call someone who is extremely talented and thorough in his writing. So when you read his articles, make sure you have the time to really sit down and really you know, grasp all the details, because there's a lot to you know, kind of take in. Also with Steve, he also wrote the book about Gush, which is a famous card from Mercadian Masks. It's something that I recommend taking a look at. If you want to learn more about Steve's books and stuff, go to the Eternal Central website. I believe he sells digital copies of that book. So it's a great, you know, it's a great, really thorough, I mean, he wrote a book about that's not one card, but why that card is so special and the interactions with that card. I think it's a great purchase if you're interested in learning more about Gush and vintage. So in terms of old school Magic, after you kind of read these websites about some of the articles and the decks and tournament you know, information about it, I think you know, the best thing to do is start playing and just start picking up a deck. If you're a person like me who's in their 30s, who really already has these older cards laying around, it doesn't matter if you're playing with revised white border cards or if you're the insane, you know, in a nice way, you have the alpha and beta cards, you can play with those cards too. You know, I have clients who play with mint alpha cards, and that's all they play with because that's what they want. It doesn't matter what you're playing with. Old school Magic is just a casual, fun, exciting format. The game has so many decks, so many interactions. It's not like the typical like a vintage where you just force a will everything and prevent a combo. It's not like that. It's kind of like standard in the sense that it's slower. There are combo decks. There are some turn 1 wins, but which are pretty insane, like the famous Channel Fireball. And so there's just so many decks. I mean, you'll discover this, that there's so many ways to win, so many ways to, you know, grind it out. It is so fun. Another thing that I'll put in the bottom of this is called Old School Magic Facebook group. That is a Skype group that I participate in almost daily or at least weekly. I play a few games with clients or friends all over the world. And all you need to do is have a Skype account. Skype is free. It's very easy to do. Also, I would invest in a nice camera, external camera. Get them on eBay. They're like $30 to $80. I would get like a nice $80 one. It's a really great investment because the picture is clear, much better quality. I would recommend it. And they're made by Logitech is the one I use. It's a very nice one. I don't have the exact code number, but I'm sure you can search around and you can do some reviews yourself. But when you have a nice camera and you don't really need a microphone, you could buy a microphone or a headset if you want, but that's all you need to get started. So from a getting started standpoint, it's really easy. So one of the things I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing deck techs of old school Magic cards. We might do some video recording of games on Skype, which will be cool because I'm going to have to figure this out in terms of setup. But I'm going to start doing that so you guys can kind of see the interactions of Skype and how it works. I know there's going to be a lot of questions. Okay, so let me ask you some of the big questions, how Skype works. Number one, is there like cheating involved? No, people don't cheat in Skype. People are just having a good time. We're not, this is not about winning a Black Lotus. It's about just having a good time playing some Magic. And honestly, if people are cheating, shame on them, because that's just, that's pretty lame. I mean, I gotta say, I mean, if you're cheating on a Skype group just to play some old school Magic, really for no prizes, you really have issues. That's all I gotta say about that. So, other than that, I mean, you know, like Chaos Orb, for example, like this is not the original Chaos Orb painting. This is the Gathering art book, which I'll review later on. The painting from Mark Tiding. So it's the second Chaos Orb he did. It's called the Orb Attack, and I'll do a video on it later on. But the Chaos Orb flip is, you know, basically a gentleman's thing where you take a foot and you rotate it and you just, you know, target one card. No, you cannot rip up the card and blow up everything. That's not how it works. That's kind of the question I get a lot is, how do you do the Chaos Orb thing? The other thing is to understand with Skype group is that you got to have a good internet connection and you got to make sure you have good lighting. So for those of you who don't understand lighting, make sure you have your lights on, or another thing is if you have ambient light coming from your back toward the cards, downwards especially, you can really get a nice view without turning on the lights. So those are kind of the setup process. But other than that, it's all about having a good time. I mean, you shuffle up the cards, you play, you know, proxies. I mean, you know, at the Skype group, they don't want you to have proxies. But to be perfectly honest with you, you can use proxies against me or other players. Just say you have proxies. I mean, not everybody can afford Power 9. You know, even Collector's Edition, International Edition is allowed. But for example, Swedish rules, you're not allowed to have, if you play in a paper tournament, when they have like a tournament called NoobCom, it's every year in April during Easter time. It's in Sweden, and so you're not allowed to have Collector's Edition. So there's actually a list of sets that you're allowed to have and have not in specific groups. Whereas Eternal Central rules, I believe they allow a Collector's Edition and International Edition cards. So, you know, compared to like a Black Lotus and Collector's Edition, you're talking like $400, you know, to $1,000 to $800 condition, depending on the condition. And then versus an unlimited one that's like $2,500 plus. I mean, then you have Alpha, which is obviously like almost like 10 grand. So you really can play the format affordably. There also, what's weird about it, it's kind of like the Eldrazi decks in Vintage, is that there's like decks that you don't even have to like have Power 9. For example, like White Weeny, it's probably one of the most competitive decks ever. White Weeny is comprised of white small 1-drops and 2-drops and maybe even 3 drops, some removal spells, but really your goal is to have Crusade out and to +1/+1 your white creatures and just attack like crazy. And it's annoying as hell to play against, and it's actually very fast and fun. There's cards like Savannah Lions that really ignite it all. You know, it's a 1-drop for 2/1. And it's just, there's so many great cards in that, and there's no power. You don't really need power for that. It's affordable. So, you know, again, guys, I want you guys to understand that the reason for this video is to really give you just kind of like that, you know, hey, you know, this is what old school Magic is. This is not going to break down the details of it or anything. If you guys want that, I will have more videos coming up. A lot of analysis on, you know, for players all over the world. We'll be doing some maybe some Skype interviews with players and whatnot. And also talk about the cards themselves, the interactions, some of the things I've discovered. Another important thing is if you go to our community section on vintagemagic.com, you'll notice that there's like, you know, we have Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, obviously, Twitter, and YouTube, like you're watching. And so if you want to join those part and connect with us, we're gonna have a lot of old school Magic content, stuff about, you know, decks I've played, you know, the components I'm playing against on Skype, the videos on products we're selling, new strategies, and, you know, stuff like that. And the very last thing is, I'll put a link below, is that there's actually an old school Magic Twitch group that started by another Marcus in England, in UK area, and that group will start having like weekly Skype videos and commentary of that. So I will put it below. It is awesome to watch. Lots of great decks, exciting action. If you just love the old school cards, I encourage you guys to take a look at it. You know, I started this company. The reason why I went to this direction of vintage Magic was because I wanted to focus on what I love. You know, my main passion is the art and the cards in the game of old school vintage Magic stuff. So it really is a blessing and, you know, exciting, you know, to be a part of this. So I hope to play some of you guys one day. I hope you guys, you know, come out there and play and find me. You know, I love to play against you guys. Appreciate you guys all the time. Talk soon.